In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where stars shimmer like diamonds on a velvet blanket, there existed a grand council. This was no ordinary gathering. The Galactic Alliance was a meeting of beings from dozens of worlds, some more advanced than others, but all coming together to form a united front in the pursuit of knowledge and peace across the stars. Among them were species that had mastered the secrets of the universe, bending time and space to their will. And then there were the humans. Humanity had recently joined the Alliance, and although the other species were polite, there was always a quiet doubt. The other aliens could not help but wonder how these small, seemingly fragile creatures had earned a place among the stars. After all, they didn't have the telepathic powers of the Zorlixians or the technological marvels of the Centaurians, but what humans did have was determination and a certain resourcefulness. So on the day of the grand meeting, as the Council of Representatives gathered to discuss important matters of the galaxy, the human ambassador, Gregor Thorne, stepped up to address the assembly. "Greetings, honored members of the Galactic Council," Gregor said, his voice calm but strong. "Today, I come to share with you a curious aspect of human culture, something that is central to our way of life. We call them pets." The room was immediately filled with confused whispers. The Zorlixian ambassador, a tall being with shimmering, translucent skin, turned to their fellow Centaurian delegate, whose multi-armed form gestured in confusion. "Pets?" the Zorlixian asked, their voice thick with curiosity. "What is the meaning of pets? Are they not just tools for labor?" Gregor smiled warmly, understanding the confusion. "Not at all. Pets are animals that we share our lives with. They provide companionship, comfort, and even, at times, help with various tasks. But more than that, they're part of the family. We care for them, feed them, and love them in return for nothing but their presence." A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. The Centaurian leader, a massive creature with 4 heads, each adorned with bright, colorful feathers, shook their heads slowly. "Why?" the Centaurian asked. "Why would any species, let alone an intelligent one, choose to spend time, energy, and resources caring for creatures that cannot contribute meaningfully to society? If they do not help with work or offer benefits, why would you bother?" Gregor looked out across the alien faces in the room, all waiting for an answer. It wasn't easy to explain the human experience of companionship, especially to beings who didn't experience emotions the same way humans did. But Gregor was determined to give it a try. "It's about connection," Gregor said. "Pets, especially animals like dogs, rabbits, birds, and even cats, provide us with something very important: affection. They offer a kind of emotional support that no machine or logical system can. They love us for who we are, not for what we do or what we can offer." The words seemed to float in the air like strange music. Some of the delegates nodded thoughtfully, while others still looked completely bewildered. The Corman delegate, a species known for their long, beak-like faces, raised an eyebrow. "You mean to say you feed and shelter these animals for the simple reason of love?" the Corman asked, their voice low and slow. "Yes," Gregor replied, feeling a sense of pride in the simplicity of it. "Yes, we do. In fact, many humans form strong bonds with their pets, even to the point where these animals become family members. They help reduce our stress, make us laugh, and sometimes even save our lives. But they also give us a sense of purpose and comfort." At this point, the room was silent. The concept was foreign to them, almost too foreign to accept. The Alliance members were known for their rationality, logic, and efficiency. They prided themselves on being practical, solving problems with cold reason and without unnecessary emotions. The idea that humans, in their technological and logical world, would spend time and resources on creatures who gave no tangible return was mind-boggling. The Zorlixian ambassador, still unsure, leaned forward in their chair, their many eyes blinking rapidly. "But do these pets not require constant attention? Do they not take up precious time and effort?" How can this be practical? Gregor chuckled softly, knowing that trying to explain human quirks to such advanced beings was like trying to explain the concept of humor to a stone. Yes, they do take time and attention, but that's part of what makes the bond so special. It's not about practicality. It's about trust and care, and something that can't be measured by logic alone. The Zorlixian nodded slowly, but it was clear they were still unconvinced. The Corpsman delegate tilted their head, clearly intrigued but still uncertain. The Centaurian leader, however, seemed to have other thoughts entirely. Well, the Centaurian said, their many arms folding in front of them, perhaps we should observe this phenomenon ourselves. It is, after all, curious. Perhaps seeing this relationship firsthand will help us understand your species better. Gregor smiled, sensing an opportunity. I believe that would be a great idea. With that, the discussion turned to other matters, but the mention of pets lingered in the minds of the council members. The Zorlixians were skeptical. The Centaurians were curious, and the Corpsmans were cautiously optimistic that this might be an interesting experiment in understanding humanity. They had no idea what they were in for. The following week, Gregor received an official request from the Galactic Council. It seemed the aliens were serious about their curiosity. They wanted to experience this human pet phenomenon for themselves. One by one, each species sent a representative to observe human pets in action. A Zorlixian scientist, an alien with elegant, graceful movements, and an intellectual air, requested to accompany Gregor on a visit to Earth to study the behavior of cats. The Centaurians, ever eager for anything new and outlandish, sent a delegation to Earth to observe the interactions between humans and their dogs. And the Corpsmen had their eyes set on smaller, less conventional pets, rabbits, and even exotic birds. The humans, of course, were more than willing to oblige. Gregor couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. He knew the aliens would be shocked, maybe even overwhelmed, by what they were about to witness. But little did they know, they were about to encounter something that would change their entire understanding of humanity. And so, as the humans prepared to welcome their new alien guests into their homes, they couldn't help but smile at the thought of what was to come. After all, humans had known the secret for centuries. Pets weren't just companions. They were a reminder that sometimes, in a universe so vast and filled with uncertainty, the smallest creatures could bring the most joy. After the meeting, excitement buzzed through the Galactic Alliance. The human concept of pets had left everyone intrigued and confused, but the curiosity was undeniable. The Council's decision was made. They would send a team of aliens to Earth to see firsthand what this strange human bond with animals was all about. They would visit the homes of Earth's pet owners, experience the relationship between humans and their pets, and try to understand what made it so unique. The humans, of course, were more than willing. Gregor Thorne, the human ambassador, was thrilled to guide the alien team, which included Zerk, the Zorlixian scientist, Lanu, the Centaurian representative, and Rook, a Corpsman delegate. All of them were curious about this thing the humans called pets, especially the most mysterious and powerful one, cats. A strange introduction. Gregor and his team of aliens boarded a specially designed ship for the journey to Earth, which took only a few hours due to the advanced technology of the Galactic Alliance. Upon landing, Gregor led the delegation to his home, where his own cat, a sleek black feline named Whiskers, was waiting. Gregor had warned the aliens that they might not understand the behavior of the cat, but he was certain they would find it interesting. The Zorlixian, Zerk, was the first to speak. This is the creature. Zerk's voice was cautious, a little doubtful. His 6 arms waved nervously, and his many eyes blinked rapidly, taking in the small, soft-looking creature with its curious gaze. Whiskers, in contrast, seemed entirely uninterested in the aliens. She simply stretched lazily on the couch, yawning as if this was just another boring afternoon. "Yes, this is Whiskers," Gregor said, with a proud smile. "She's a cat, And as I explained in the council, she is more than just an animal. She's family. Lanu, the Centaurian, extended one of their long, multi-jointed arms towards Whiskers, clearly fascinated. This tiny creature is family. Lanu's multiple heads seem to exchange looks. It doesn't seem to have any special abilities. It's so small, so unimportant. Gregor chuckled. That's the thing about cats. They don't need to have special abilities. They're perfect just the way they are. Zerk, still not convinced, leaned forward, observing the cat more closely. How does this creature provide any form of benefit to you? Zerk asked, his voice curious but still skeptical. What does it do for you? Does it work? Does it protect you? Gregor smiled. Well, no. Whiskers doesn't work or protect us in the traditional sense, but she brings us something that's hard to explain. She provides comfort. She makes us laugh. And sometimes she just sits there with her soft purrs, and somehow that's enough. Enough? Zerk repeated. His many eyes blinked again. Is this affection? Do you truly care for this creature in a way you care for your own people? Gregor nodded, trying to find the right words. Yes, exactly. It's a kind of love, but it's different. It's unconditional. She doesn't need anything from us except attention and food, and in return, she gives us something more valuable than anything else, a kind of peace and a reminder that we're not alone. The alien delegation, still uncertain, watched as Gregor bent down to pet Whiskers. The cat purred loudly, rubbing her head against Gregor's hand. The sound was soothing, almost hypnotic. For a brief moment, even the aliens were silent, watching this strange bond between human and cat. The chaos begins. It didn't take long for the situation to take an unexpected turn. Gregor was in the middle of explaining how Whiskers had saved his life on a few occasions, by waking him up when he'd accidentally left the stove on. When the cat decided it was time for her usual mischief, she stood up, stretched dramatically, and then, in one swift motion, jumped onto the nearby coffee table. Before anyone could react, Whiskers knocked over a stack of important-looking alien devices, sending them crashing to the floor. Zerk's eyes widened in horror. What is happening? He gasped. Whiskers, completely unfazed by the chaos she just caused, calmly proceeded to knock over a vase, sending it tumbling to the ground with a loud crash. The Corpsman delegate, Rook, shrieked in shock as the vase shattered into 100 pieces. No, not the vase. Rook cried, their long, beak-like mouth opening wide in alarm. Lanu, the Centaurian, attempted to use their many arms to gently remove Whiskers from the table, but the cat was faster. With a single leap, she landed on top of the Centaurian's head, sending Lanu into a frenzy. Whiskers sat there, proudly perched, completely ignoring Lanu's frantic movements. Calm down. Gregor laughed, stepping in to grab Whiskers and remove her from the situation. She's not hurting anything. She's just playing. But the aliens were in disarray. Zerk was frantically trying to pick up the scattered alien equipment, clearly stressed. I've never seen such behavior. This is madness. Lanu, still trying to regain composure, gave Gregor a look of disbelief. This is what you call affection? Lanu asked, their voice trembling. She just destroyed our equipment. She doesn't listen to us. How can this be acceptable? Gregor nodded, feeling a bit guilty but also amused. That's part of the fun. You see, cats are not like other animals. They do things on their own terms. They're independent. They make their own decisions. And sometimes that includes breaking things. The strange power of cats. Despite the chaos, Gregor gently placed Whiskers back on the couch, where she resumed her nap, completely uninterested in the turmoil she had caused. The alien delegation, on the other hand, was still processing the strange events that had unfolded in such a short amount of time. Zerk, who had been silent for a moment, finally spoke up. I don't understand, Zerk said, their voice softer now, almost hesitant. This cat, It doesn't seem to care about us at all. She just does whatever she wants. How is it possible that you care for such a creature? Gregor sat down beside Whiskers, petting her gently. It's not about her obeying us or doing what we want. It's about the bond we share. She doesn't need to be perfect. She doesn't need to be trained or obedient. She just needs to be herself. And in return, we love her for that. The aliens were quiet for a long moment. They could see that Gregor truly believed what he was saying, but they still couldn't understand it fully. They were so used to control, efficiency, and logic. Everything had to make sense, had to follow rules. But here they were, surrounded by confusion, chaos, and yet there was something strangely calming about it all. Something warm. Lanu, the Centaurian, was the first to speak again, their many arms folding thoughtfully. I still don't understand why you would tolerate such chaos. But perhaps there is something more to this than I can see. There is something comforting in the way you speak about it. Maybe, just maybe, you're right. Rook, the Corpsman delegate, nodded slowly. I will admit, I'm intrigued. There is a strange power in this bond you have. It doesn't make sense, but perhaps that is the point. Zerk, ever the scientist, seemed deep in thought. I still can't explain it, they muttered. But perhaps there is more to this human love for pets than logic can explain. And with that, the aliens were left to reflect on the strange and unpredictable creature that was Whiskers. Though they had started the visit with skepticism and doubt, they couldn't deny that the cat had made an impact on them. A small, unassuming animal had caused chaos, yes, but it had also opened their eyes to something they hadn't considered before, something beyond logic and reason. The first step toward understanding. By the end of the visit, the alien delegation was starting to change their views, albeit reluctantly. Zerk had grown curious about the concept of unconditional love, and Lanu was beginning to see the value in embracing the unknown. Rook, surprisingly, had begun to see the appeal of having a creature that could simply sit and share space with you without needing anything in return. As the delegation boarded their ship to return to the Galactic Council, they found themselves deep in thought. The mysteries of human pets, especially cats, had only just begun to unravel. And though they didn't fully understand the bond between humans and their pets, one thing was certain. They would never look at a cat, or the concept of love, quite the same way again. The next day, after the chaos of Whiskers' first encounter with the alien delegates, things seemed calmer. But the aliens were still processing everything that had happened. They hadn't expected a small cat to cause so much trouble or to have such a strange effect on them. Yet, here they were, trying to make sense of this bizarre phenomenon. Gregor could see that the aliens were still struggling to understand the purpose of these animals, and he had a feeling that they needed to witness a more normal day with Whiskers. Perhaps if they saw her in a quieter moment, they could begin to understand what made cats so special to humans. So, he invited the delegation over to his home again the following morning. The aliens were a bit hesitant, but their curiosity had gotten the better of them. They were eager to see if they could uncover more about the mysterious behavior of this strange creature. A calm morning with Whiskers. The morning started off quietly. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow across the room. Gregor had prepared some tea, and the aliens had gathered around the living room. Whiskers, as always, was lounging on the couch, looking as relaxed as could be. At first, everything seemed peaceful. The alien delegates watched as Gregor sat down and gently stroked Whiskers, who purred contentedly. The sound of her purring filled the room like a soft hum, soothing in its simplicity. Gregor smiled as he watched the aliens' faces soften slightly. Perhaps they were beginning to see the charm of this little creature. But just when it seemed like everything was settling down, Whiskers decided it was time to do something, well, typical of a cat. Without warning, Whiskers jumped up from the couch and sprinted across the room, making a beeline for the bookshelf. Her movements were fast and graceful, almost like a blur. The aliens watched in confusion as she leaped onto the top shelf, knocking over a few books in the process. Not again. Gregor muttered under his breath, though he wasn't truly upset. He was used to this by now. Zerk, the Zorlixian scientist, was once again the first to react. She's climbing. Zerk said in disbelief. Why does she climb? She has no purpose for this behavior. She doesn't need to reach anything. Why is she doing this? Gregor laughed. It's just what she does. Cats love to climb. It's instinctual for them. It's in their nature. Lanu, the Centaurian, seemed especially puzzled. But why climb for no reason? What's the point? Gregor shrugged. For Whiskers, climbing is about the freedom to move. Cats have this need to explore and get to high places. It makes them feel safe, secure, and in control. Even if it's just a shelf, it's her way of feeling powerful. The aliens didn't seem entirely convinced, but they continued to observe. Whiskers remained perched on top of the shelf, her tail flicking from side to side. She surveyed the room as if she were a queen on her throne, watching over her kingdom. And then, as if it had been pre-planned, Whiskers suddenly leaped down with lightning speed, landing perfectly on the couch. She shook herself and began grooming her fur as if nothing had happened. It was as if the whole event had been a simple stretch of the legs. Whiskers' mischief continues. Just when the aliens thought the day would be peaceful, Whiskers decided to remind them that she was still in charge. Gregor, Lanu, Zerk, and Rook had all been sitting around the coffee table, talking about the peculiar behavior of Whiskers. They were starting to understand a little more, though they still didn't fully grasp it. Then, out of nowhere, Whiskers dashed toward the kitchen. The aliens followed her with their eyes, and Gregor sighed, knowing what was coming. I've seen this before, he muttered. Here we go. Without warning, Whiskers leaped onto the kitchen counter, knocking over a cup and sending it crashing to the floor. The aliens gasped in surprise. It wasn't that the cat had done something dangerous. It was just so unexpected. She seemed to do these things on a whim, with no reason at all. Why is she doing this? Zerk asked, clearly exasperated. She's not hunting anything. She doesn't need the food. Why the mess? Gregor laughed, shaking his head. It's not about the food or anything useful. Cats just do things for the sake of doing them. They love to play, explore, and yes, sometimes make a mess. It's like they can't help it. But this is wasteful. Rook, the Corpsman delegate, said, their beak clicking in frustration. She's destroying things. What is the purpose of this destruction? Gregor sat back, thinking carefully. I guess the purpose is just to be. Cats are creatures of instinct. They don't follow rules the way we do. They do things because they feel like it. And sometimes, that's okay. Not everything has to have a purpose or be efficient. Sometimes, life is just about doing things for fun. The aliens looked at each other, still confused. Lanu's many heads turned to each other as they tried to process the idea. So, you accept the chaos? Lanu asked. Gregor nodded. Yes, we do. It's part of the charm of having a cat. They don't do things for the sake of being useful. They do things for their own enjoyment. And in return, they bring us joy, even if they're a bit mischievous sometimes. The unexpected connection. After a few more moments of silence, Whiskers settled back down on the couch. She began cleaning her paws, meticulously licking each one in a slow, deliberate motion. She was calm now, her earlier antics forgotten as she went about her daily grooming routine. The aliens watched her in silence. For the first time, they seemed to be understanding something important. Whiskers wasn't just a pet. She was a creature with her own mind, her own will, and her own way of doing things. The more they observed her, the more they realized that her actions were not driven by logic or utility. She simply lived in the moment, doing whatever felt right for her. Lanu was the first to speak again, their voice thoughtful. You humans seem to love this chaos. You accept it, even embrace it. Perhaps that is the key. Maybe we've been too focused on efficiency, too focused on control. But Whiskers doesn't care about any of that. She just exists. Zerk, who had been deep in thought, finally spoke up as well. Yes, she's free. Completely free. I don't know if I understand it completely, but I can see why humans find comfort in that. She doesn't obey anyone. She doesn't have a master or a set of rules to follow. She just is. Maybe that's why humans love her so much. She reminds you of something important. Rook, the corpsman, nodded slowly. Freedom and joy. That's what she brings, even if it doesn't always make sense. Gregor smiled, pleased that the aliens were finally starting to understand. Exactly. Whiskers and other pets teach us something that can't always be explained with logic. They remind us to enjoy the small moments, to appreciate life for what it is, and to embrace the unpredictability of the world. A new understanding. As the day came to an end, Gregor felt a sense of accomplishment. He had seen the change in the alien delegates. They had come to Earth with skepticism and confusion, but they were leaving with a new perspective. They hadn't fully understood the bond between humans and their pets, but they had taken the first step toward comprehension. As the ship lifted off from Earth, heading back toward the Galactic Council, Zerk, Lanu, and Rook were quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. The journey back would take several hours, but they didn't mind. They had learned something important. Maybe there was more to life than just logic and efficiency. Maybe there was a place for chaos, for joy, and for living in the moment. Zerk, who had always been the most skeptical, finally broke the silence. I still don't completely understand, but I think I see why you humans love your pets. They bring something to your lives that we never considered, something beyond reason. Lanu nodded. Perhaps we can learn something from you, Gregor. Something about appreciating what we have, even if it's a little messy. Gregor smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. I think you're starting to get it. And so, as Whiskers lay peacefully on the couch back at home, the aliens who had come to observe her found themselves thinking about the simple joy of her existence. She had caused chaos, yes, but she had also opened their eyes to something greater. The beauty of living without rules, the freedom of being exactly who you are, and the value of enjoying life, no matter how unpredictable it might be. After the events of the previous days, the alien delegation was on their way back to the Galactic Council. Gregor and the team had spent countless hours trying to explain the odd human connection to pets, particularly cats, and their role in human society. But while the aliens were beginning to understand the general concept, there was still something they couldn't quite grasp: the total surrender of control humans had when it came to these small furry creatures. The aliens were used to systems that ran on logic, precision, and control. There were no mysteries, no chaos. Everything had a clear purpose. But cats didn't work that way. Whiskers didn't make sense to them. Despite their confusion, the delegation was leaving with a new perspective. They had learned to see that the relationship between humans and their pets wasn't about rules or order. It was about freedom, love, and something far more abstract than they were used to. But as they departed Earth, they had no idea that their true test was just beginning. A test that would make them face a challenge they hadn't been prepared for: the true power of a cat. The return to the Galactic Council. The delegation's return to the Galactic Council was supposed to be a time for reflection and calm. They had gathered their notes, observed the humans, and seen how these small creatures called cats played such a significant role in their lives. But something was different this time. As they traveled back to their station, there was a growing sense of unease. It wasn't about the cats. They had begun to accept that strange bond. No, it was something more fundamental. The aliens had been used to control. They had systems in place to ensure everything was running efficiently. They never left things to chance. Every action, every decision was planned. Everything in their society followed the principle of logic. Yet the more they thought about the chaos caused by Whiskers, the more they realized that they had left a significant piece of the puzzle unsolved. The chaos, the unpredictability of the cat's actions was unsettling. It reminded them of something they hadn't considered, that perhaps their societies were too structured. The question now was not only about cats, but about the unpredictability of life itself. They were afraid of chaos, afraid of the idea that the universe couldn't be controlled, predicted, or organized. That's what the visit had made them realize, whether they liked it or not. The unpredictable challenge. As the ship carrying the delegation landed in the council chambers, the aliens were still deep in thought. Zerk, Lanu, and Rook were the first to step off the ship, each of them clearly shaken by their recent experiences on Earth. The Zorlixian scientist, Zerk, who had been the most rational of the group, found himself pacing restlessly. "I can't stop thinking about that cat," he admitted. "It doesn't make sense. She destroyed our equipment. She disrupted everything. And yet, she brought something I can't explain." Lanu, the Centaurian, nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, it's as if the entire visit was one giant lesson in unpredictability. I feel like we've lost control of everything." Rook, the corpsman, had been unusually quiet, but finally spoke. "We've never experienced anything like that before. The chaos, the mess, it was almost like Whiskers was teaching us something. But what? What did we learn?" Just then, the council chamber doors opened, and the Galactic Council members, some of the most powerful and logical beings in the galaxy, stepped forward to greet the delegation. The council members were eager to hear about the team's visit to Earth. They had been curious about the humans' relationship with their pets for some time, and now, with the alien delegates returning, they were expecting answers. Gregor, who had accompanied the aliens back to the council as their human representative, smiled as the council members addressed the delegation. He had been with the aliens throughout the entire journey and had patiently answered every question they asked. But this time, there was something in the air, a tension. He could sense that things were different. The Galactic Council's reaction. The council members were waiting, their many eyes scanning the group of delegates. Zerk, who had once been the most excited about the mission, now stood still and silent, clearly hesitant. Lanu looked as though she was struggling with the weight of the realization they had all come to. Rook's usual sharp beak seemed almost dull with uncertainty. One of the council members, a tall, elegant being with shimmering skin, stepped forward. "Well," they asked, "what have you learned about these strange creatures, these pets that the humans call cats?" Zerk cleared his throat and stepped forward. "We have learned much, but we are still struggling to understand the full extent of their significance. The humans' connection with these animals is far deeper than we could have anticipated." "Yes," Lanu added, her voice trembling slightly. "These cats are chaotic, unpredictable. They disrupt everything. But they also bring something we cannot explain. There is a certain freedom in their actions, a joy in their existence, that we have never known." The council members exchanged looks, each of them deep in thought. And one of them asked, "Is this why humans keep them? For joy? For disruption?" Rook spoke up, his voice serious. "Yes, it's not about logic, not about purpose. It's about being. These creatures do not need to conform to any structure. They act on instinct, on feeling. There is no reason or rhyme to it. And yet, they bring something valuable, that we have never been able to quantify." The council was silent. They had expected the delegation to return with clear answers, definitive data on the pets, the cats. But they hadn't. Instead, they were left with more questions and a deep sense of discomfort. The council had always prided itself on its ability to control, predict, and plan every aspect of life. But now, this strange, unpredictable creature had shown them something new, that not everything needed to be controlled. Not everything could be calculated. The fall of control. As the discussion continued, the council members began to argue amongst themselves. They were divided. Some of the members insisted that the delegation had missed something crucial, that the cats were mere distractions, bringing chaos and nothing more. Others began to consider the possibility that Whiskers and her kind represented something far more profound than they could understand. "You're saying that chaos is valuable?" one council member asked, their voice cold and disbelieving. "You want us to accept that such behavior can be embraced?" "Yes," Zerk answered, his voice hesitant. "We believe that perhaps the humans' approach is more complex than we thought. Maybe we've been too focused on logic. Maybe it's time to accept that life isn't all about rules and systems. But we must have rules." Another council member shouted, "Without order, there is no progress. Without control, everything will fall apart. If we allow chaos to take root, how can we guarantee stability in our universe?" Rook stepped forward. "Perhaps it's not about chaos taking root," he said slowly. "Perhaps it's about balance. A balance between control and chaos. The humans have something that we don't. They can embrace both sides of life. They can find peace in the unpredictable." The room fell silent. It was in this silence that the true realization struck the council. The logic they had built their entire society upon, efficient, orderly, predictable, was now at risk. The delegation had unknowingly pushed them to confront a fundamental truth: that sometimes, in order to grow, they would need to relinquish control and embrace the unknown. But could they? Could the Galactic Council, with its strict order and methods, allow the kind of freedom that humans had with their pets? Could they allow themselves to live in the moment, to embrace the unpredictable? As the debate raged on, it became clear that a shift was occurring, a shift that would alter the very foundation of the Council, and possibly the entire galaxy. The final realization. In the end, there was no clear winner in the debate. The Galactic Council had not fully embraced the idea of abandoning their structured existence for a life of chaos and unpredictability. But they had, at the very least, recognized that the humans' way of living had something valuable in it, a balance between order and disorder that they had never considered. Gregor, who had watched the entire debate unfold, realized that this was only the beginning. The aliens were now forced to confront their own understanding of life. And though they hadn't yet fully accepted it, they were one step closer to seeing the value of chaos, of freedom, and of living in the moment. As the council meeting drew to a close, the delegates returned to their quarters, their minds still buzzing with the events of the day. They had faced their downfall, not in the sense of a defeat, but in the realization that their entire worldview might need to change. And somewhere, far away, Whiskers stretched lazily in the sunlight, completely unaware of the impact she had had on the fate of an entire galaxy. The galaxy had always been a place of order, of precise calculations, and of perfectly laid plans. The Galactic Council, made up of the most intelligent and logical beings in the known universe, had built a vast empire that spanned light years. They were a people who had mastered every aspect of life. Control was their creed, and perfection their goal. That was until one small, unpredictable creature came into their lives, a creature who had no care for the rules, no interest in following orders, a creature that, in its own way, brought the council to its knees. It wasn't just Whiskers now. The more the council discussed the strange bond between humans and their pets, the more they realized that the world was changing, and with it, their place in it. Cats, and other pets, had started to represent something far more profound than they could have imagined. And the galaxy, with all its infinite stars, was about to be transformed by a force so simple, so elegant, that even the most powerful beings couldn't control it. The aftermath of the debate. In the aftermath of the intense council meeting, Zerk, Lanu, and Rook had returned to their quarters, their minds heavy with the weight of what they had just learned. For the first time in their lives, they were questioning everything they thought they knew. They had always lived by a simple rule: control everything or be controlled. The idea of letting go, of embracing chaos and unpredictability, seemed so alien, so unnatural to them. But there was no denying the power of the humans' pets. There was no denying the deep connection they shared with these animals. It was clear now that the relationship between humans and cats was something profound, something important. "Do you think we can change the Council's mind?" Zerk asked as he paced in their shared quarters. "I don't know," Lanu replied. "The Council is old, set in its ways. But maybe we can help them understand. Maybe it's time to think differently." Rook, who had been quiet for a long time, finally spoke. "It's not just about understanding. It's about embracing what we don't understand. It's about admitting that control isn't everything. Maybe that's the future of the galaxy. Not perfect order, but balance. A balance between control and freedom." The words hung in the air. The three aliens had come to a realization, one that would set them on a path they could never have imagined before. They needed to show the Council the true power of the cats, of the chaotic, unpredictable force that had begun to infiltrate their lives. The arrival of more cats. Back on Earth, the news had spread quickly. The Galactic Council had learned about the cats, but they hadn't yet realized the full impact of what they were dealing with. The idea that a single cat could create such turmoil among the most organized and structured beings in the universe was laughable at first. But now, it was becoming clear that the cats weren't just a small part of human life. They were changing everything. Humans had always loved their pets, but now, something more was happening. People began to see the cats not just as companions, but as symbols of a world beyond control. The pets were no longer mere animals. They were a movement, a force that couldn't be tamed. Soon, it wasn't just Whiskers causing chaos. People everywhere, across cities and towns, noticed strange behaviors from their own cats. The little creatures would climb to impossible heights, knock things over for no reason at all, and simply exist in ways that defied logic. And somehow, this chaos brought joy. It made people laugh. It made them feel free in a way they hadn't felt before. But the most interesting part, cats began to spread beyond Earth. Cats in the cosmos. It started small. Ships traveling between planets and star systems often carried small animals as companions for the long journeys. But the first time an alien from a distant planet saw a cat, something magical happened. On a faraway world, a small fleet of ships carrying cargo and passengers docked at a major trade hub. One ship was carrying more than just goods. It was carrying an Earth cat, a black and white feline named Luna. The crew had brought Luna along to help ease the stress of the long journey. But when the ship arrived at the trade hub, Luna did something unexpected. She jumped onto the console of the ship, knocking over a few important documents and pushing buttons at random. The alien crew members were stunned. This was a ship that followed exact protocol, where every action was planned and every button press was calculated. But Luna's interruption, her chaotic, whimsical behavior, was like a breath of fresh air. It made the crew laugh. It made them forget about their rigid rules for just a moment. And in that moment, they understood something important. The aliens didn't want to just control everything anymore. Maybe they could embrace the chaos. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy didn't need to be so perfect. Soon, Luna's story spread across the spaceports. The idea of cats, of Earth's strange, unpredictable pets, began to gain popularity. People from various worlds began to adopt cats. At first, it was just a small fad, a curiosity. But it didn't take long for people to realize that the cats weren't just cute and funny. They were changing the way people thought about the universe. The cat's influence grows. Back in the Galactic Council, the debate was intensifying. Zerk, Lanu, and Rook had worked tirelessly to bring the Council's attention to the phenomenon. They had seen firsthand the way cats brought joy to the people they encountered. They were not just pets. They were a symbol of something bigger, a reminder that the universe could not, and should not, be controlled. They were a symbol of freedom, of balance. The Council, however, was resistant. Despite the overwhelming evidence, despite the reports from countless planets and systems, they still clung to their old ways. Control is the only way forward, they insisted. Without order, we will descend into chaos. But the message was clear now. The galaxy was changing. The cats, those little creatures with no care for the rules, were becoming a symbol of revolution. They were the catalyst for a shift in thinking that could not be ignored. And so, the cats spread. They began appearing on more and more worlds. People started seeing them not just as pets, but as symbols of rebellion against the oppressive order that the Galactic Council had maintained for eons. People laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. How these small, playful creatures could bring such powerful change. On each new world they visited, cats seemed to offer something different. They brought laughter where there had been tension. They brought relaxation where there had been stress. They reminded people that it was okay to let go of control, to let life unfold naturally, even if it meant a little mess. The cat's arrival on the council. The day came when the Galactic Council could no longer ignore the undeniable truth. The cats had conquered the galaxy. Not through violence, not through force, but through their unpredictable, playful, and chaotic energy. They had won hearts across the universe, and the once rigid council could no longer deny the influence of the cats. In a final meeting, the council gathered to discuss the ever-growing presence of these small creatures. Zerk, Lanu, and Rook stood before them, their faces serious yet hopeful. "We've tried to explain this to you," Zerk said, "but now you can see it for yourselves. The galaxy is changing. The cats have become more than just pets. They are symbols of a new way of thinking, a way that embraces freedom, balance, and the unpredictable nature of the universe." The council was silent. They had resisted, had clung to their control for so long. But now, they had seen the truth. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. It belonged to everyone, and everything. And if they were to survive in this new age, they would have to learn to embrace the chaos, the unpredictability, and the freedom that cats had brought with them. A council member stood up and spoke, their voice heavy with the weight of realization. "Perhaps it's time we listen to the chaos," they said softly. "Perhaps it's time we allow the galaxy to breathe, to live in its natural rhythm." And so, for the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council allowed themselves to truly let go. They embraced the freedom that came with accepting the unpredictable nature of life. And as they did, they realized that they were not the rulers of the galaxy anymore. The cats had conquered it, not through force, but through their simple, joyful existence. The end of order. In the end, it wasn't about power or control. It was about letting go. It was about realizing that sometimes the best way to live wasn't with perfect order, but with a little bit of chaos. As for the cats, they didn't care about any of this. They just continued to do what cats do. They climbed, they knocked things over, they purred, and they reminded everyone in the galaxy that life didn't need to be controlled. It just needed to be lived. And so, the galaxy was forever changed by the most unexpected conquerors of all. The galaxy had never been the same since the cats arrived. What began as a small curiosity, a simple and somewhat humorous observation of a species and their pets, had transformed into something much larger. The cats, with their free-spirited nature and unpredictable ways, had woven themselves into the fabric of countless cultures across the galaxy. Their influence had spread in ways no one could have predicted, and the consequences of their actions were still unfolding, creating a new reality that no one could escape. As the Galactic Council finally began to see the light, it was clear that they were no longer in control of the universe. The orderly, precise way of life that had been their hallmark for millennia had crumbled. In its place, something entirely different was emerging. A new order, one that embraced chaos, freedom, and unpredictability. The change wasn't easy, and it wasn't without resistance. The journey from a tightly controlled galaxy to one that allowed for unpredictability and freedom was a difficult one. But as the days turned into months, and the months into years, the influence of the cats continued to grow. It was as if they had sparked something deep within the very core of existence, something that couldn't be ignored. The galactic shift. The Galactic Council had been made up of beings from countless planets and star systems, all sharing one thing in common: a belief in order. They had controlled the flow of commerce, the peace between planets, and the very structure of the galaxy. For them, stability and control were paramount. The idea that an animal, an Earth pet, no less, could bring about such monumental change seemed absurd at first. But over time, as cats continued to infiltrate every corner of the galaxy, it became clear that they weren't just cute creatures. They were agents of change. In the beginning, the Council tried to suppress the growing trend. They issued decrees and mandates, instructing planets to return to their old ways. But the more they fought, the stronger the movement became. On every world, people began to see the value in embracing the chaos. It wasn't about destroying order. It was about recognizing that life couldn't be reduced to mere calculations and rigid plans. The cats, in their carefree ways, had taught them that there was something more to life than just perfect control. But the Council wasn't ready to give up just yet. They believed they could still restore order to the galaxy. They didn't realize, however, that the very idea of order had already begun to change. The Council's struggle. The more the Council fought against the rising influence of the cats, the more their efforts seemed futile. Every attempt to suppress the cats only seemed to make their influence stronger, and it wasn't just the cats anymore. Everywhere you looked, people were questioning the very foundations of their society. Why did they need to follow strict rules all the time? Why couldn't they take a break from the rigid structure of their lives and enjoy the unpredictable beauty of existence? It was as if the universe itself was telling them that change was coming, whether they liked it or not. The Council members, once so confident in their ability to control the galaxy, found themselves grappling with something they had never encountered: the power of unpredictability. Zerk, Lanu, and Rook, the alien delegates who had been sent to Earth all those years ago, were now some of the most vocal advocates for embracing the new way of thinking. They had seen firsthand the power of the cats, and they believed the universe could be a better place if it allowed for a little chaos. They began to argue that perhaps it was time to step back and let the galaxy breathe, to let it exist in its natural state. But the Council's old guard wasn't ready to listen. They saw the rise of the cats as a threat to everything they had worked for. They clung to their belief in order, in control, and in predictability. Yet, deep down, they could feel the tide turning. The question was no longer whether the change would happen, but when. The Great Debate. The Galactic Council convened once again to discuss the future of the galaxy. This meeting would be different from all the others. The old Council members had been forced to confront a truth they could no longer ignore. Their vision of the galaxy was crumbling, and something new was rising in its place. Zerk, Lanu, and Rook sat at the front of the Council chamber, preparing to present their case for a new order. They were nervous, but they knew that this was their chance to make a difference. They had spent years trying to show the Council the value of embracing chaos, of allowing the galaxy to evolve in ways they couldn't predict. Now, it was time to make their final plea. The room was filled with tension as the Council members took their seats. Some were eager for change, while others were still determined to maintain the old ways. The debate began, and it didn't take long for the passionate arguments to start flying. "You want us to throw away everything we've worked for?" One Council member asked angrily. "Our entire society is built on order. Without it, we'll descend into chaos. There will be anarchy." But Zerk, who had once been the most logical of all the delegates, spoke up with calm determination. "We don't need to abandon order," he said. "We need to embrace balance. The galaxy has always been about finding harmony. The cats have shown us that. They live in a world without strict rules, but that doesn't mean their lives are without value. It means they are free to be what they are, without fear of being controlled." Another Council member, her voice filled with skepticism, shook her head. "But how can we trust something that is so unpredictable? The chaos they represent could tear everything apart." Lanu stepped forward and replied, "We've been afraid of chaos for too long. We've tried to control everything, but in doing so, we've stifled life itself. The cats have brought joy and freedom to the people across the galaxy. They remind us that not everything needs to be controlled. We can have freedom, and we can have order. It doesn't have to be one or the other. The debate raged on for hours, with passionate voices on both sides. It seemed as though the council was on the verge of a split. Some members were ready to embrace the new way of thinking, while others held tightly to the old ways, unwilling to let go of their belief in control. But as the hours passed, one by one, more and more council members began to see the truth in Zerk, Lanu, and Rook's words. The tide was slowly turning. The moment of change. It was late into the meeting when the council's leader, a wise and respected being named Orvath, stood up to speak. Orvath had always been a staunch believer in order and control, but he had seen the shift in the galaxy. He had seen the people embracing chaos and unpredictability, and he had come to understand that maybe the galaxy didn't need to be controlled so tightly after all. "I've spent my life enforcing the laws of order," Orvath said, his voice soft but powerful. "But I see now that we've been holding on to something that no longer serves us. The cats have taught us something valuable. They've shown us that life isn't just about control, it's about freedom. We've been afraid of that freedom, afraid of what might happen if we let go. But maybe it's time to trust in the galaxy. To trust that, even in chaos, there can be beauty." The room fell silent. Orvath's words struck a chord with the council members. They had fought hard to maintain the old order, but they had come to realize that they couldn't stop the change. The cats had brought something new, something beautiful, and it was time to accept that. "We will not abandon order," Orvath continued, "but we will embrace balance. We will create a new order, one that allows for freedom, for unpredictability, for chaos when it is needed. And in doing so, we will make the galaxy a better place." And with that, the council made their decision. The new galactic order would not be one of rigid control, but one that balanced order and chaos, predictability and freedom. The cats, with their whimsical ways, had shown them the way forward. The new galactic order. The galaxy began to change, slowly at first, but with undeniable momentum. The new order was one of balance, where people could still maintain structure and order, but where they could also embrace the unpredictability that life often brought. It was a universe that was freer, more alive, and more in tune with the natural rhythms of existence. And at the center of it all were the cats. Their carefree ways, their ability to live without the constraints of rigid rules, had sparked a revolution that no one could have predicted. They had conquered the galaxy, not through force, but through their simple, joyful existence. As the new galactic order took shape, the council embraced their role not as rulers, but as guides. They worked to ensure that the balance between order and chaos was maintained. It wasn't always easy. There were still challenges, still moments when the old ways threatened to take hold. But the people of the galaxy had learned something important from the cats. That life was about more than just control. It was about living freely, without fear of the unknown. The cats had conquered the galaxy, and in doing so, they had brought about a new age.